Peace and blessings to you. My name is Jerry B. I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. And so is this gentleman sitting to the left of your screen. He is none other than EntreMusician extraordinaire from the great, big, huge state of Texas. That's Vel Lewis over there, who has done just about everything. So you know what? He's done just about everything. We're going to have to talk about just about everything. Vel, what's happening, brother? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Man, what's happening? I don't know if we've got enough time to cover all of that today.
Well, you shouldn't have been so busy.
Yeah, I know. And I think about this every morning when I get up and say prayers, to thank God that I have the life that I have, the strength that I have in my body to be able to continue getting through the day, because he's just poured out so many blessings on me. I don't know. I mean, I have to ask for his help to keep up. It's been amazing.
Don't I know it?
It's been amazing. I mean, gosh, since you and I last talked, I've been working on new projects, and they're coming to fruition actually right now.
Yeah.
One single that I'm working on with good friend Michael Garvin, guitarist. Michael's got just a stellar history of music hits that he's done with George Benson, with Jennifer Lopez, and I mean his list continues with a lot of country western artists as well that he's written for. And now we've kind of teamed up to work on a project together. So we're starting off with a single, which he's actually helping me as far as some of the pre-production work as of last night. I know he's with my engineer probably right now as we speak, just to fine tune a couple things, and mastering is set and ready to go as soon as that's done, so we can forward the WAV file, as you know how that works, over the mastering, and get that done. And meanwhile, I've got another single ready to go as well, and then that's coming, like I say, as soon as we get this one done, so I can just relieve my hands of it and then get back to this one. And that one's going to be exciting as well, doing that one with Mr. Larry Braggs. Larry's very well known in the industry as well, primarily in the smooth jazz markets. And his tenure with the power group Tower Power. He's been with them for, I think, 14 years before he moved to the Temptations. Amazing. So he's putting his vocal prowess on the single that we're doing. And I mean, it's just amazing to hear these songs. I can't wait to get them out.
I know that's right. Well, you've done so much. I mean, you yourself, 3-time Grammy nominee, your music going way back to the Fresh Prince and the Sopranos, having your music placed there, touring with Dionne Warwick, 3 years. I mean, you've just done it all. I need to ask you, with regard to your much storied career, man, what has music taught you?
Wow. It has taught me basically how to coordinate activities in music and in life in general. Primarily because, traveling on the road makes you think on your feet, because things happen all the time that you're not expecting.
Yes.
Also, getting used to being up late at night, getting a couple hours sleep, jump up in the morning, you got to be ready with your bags packed. They got to be outside the door at 4 a.m. You better be downstairs at 5 to get on the bus to get to the airport. And I mean, just living like that for years, day in and day out, makes your mind really focus on what it is that you're doing and how important it is for you to be coordinated with your life activities, that you can be on time, be at rehearsals, be at sound check, and just do everything that is required to be a professional musician.
Yeah.
And then that continues, as you know, when you leave from being part of a tour to moving into your own independency of, managing a label, managing a publishing company,
Mhm.
Now I'm managing a music foundation, and that I
Mhm.
founded. And I've also got another for-profit corporation, which helps artists from a coaching standpoint to be able to prepare them for their career. It's a balancing act, bouncing balls going on all the time. So
Absolutely.
it's taught me business prowess as well. A lot of people don't know that while I was doing music, basically since I was in my teens,
Mhm.
moving into adulthood, I actually worked in corporate America for various companies in the high tech arena,
Mhm.
computer products distributors, and worked in the capacity of credit administrator, accounting manager, director of credit, and just moved up the ladder
Mhm.
and managing. Gosh, I think at one point I was in charge of about 24 branch locations of $550 million computer company.
Now,
So
was this while you were doing music, or did you step out of
I
that
was
life?
I was a songwriter for a music production company in LA at the time.
Mhm.
It's called LA Post Music, and this is where we were writing buffers and music for uh, the Fresh Prince, for the Sopranos, things
Yeah,
of that nature, which it didn't require me to be out on the road. I could do that stuff at home.
sure.
So that was nice to be able to do that while I was working, and then have that residual income as well from
Mhm.
royalties coming in from the productions being out there on TV and so forth. So yeah, it's
Well, when you were touring with Dionne, were you one of the background singers? Because you are a very heavy
keyboardist,
duty singer, but you were doing keyboard.
strictly keyboard.
So, what drew you when you began your solo career? What drew you to the organ? I mean, you are just as much of Jimmy Smith and Jack McDuff and Joey DeFrancisco and Charles Erlin. I can go down the line for for the jazz organists that are out there. But was there something particular, because you're just as fresh on synthesizer and piano as well? So why did
Well,
you say this is my voice?
I started out on organ.
Mm,
Actually, prior to that, I was playing flute,
I see.
and flute didn't work well with me because when I was a young boy, I think probably 3, 4, 5 years old, I was dealing with asthma problems.
Mm,
And I think that lingered on until I picked up the flute when I was about 9 years old and tried to get the breathing control. It wasn't working.
I see.
So after about a year of trying to do that, the teacher physically snatched the flute out of my hand
Mm,
in the class and said, "You weren't practicing this." And, yeah, you're right. Well, you better pick another instrument. And I immediately thought of a guy that was in my class at that time. I guess I was probably fifth grade. And he used to play the organ that was in our music room. And it was just so much fun to watch him play, because he's just bouncing and he's smiling and just moving feet, hands going at the same time. I said, "Wow, that looks fun. I think I'm gonna try that."
oh,
So I started taking private piano lessons or organ lessons on Saturdays, where I would have to get up in the morning, catch a bus downtown Philadelphia, go to a high school there, Ben Franklin High, and have my organ training done, which usually lasted about an hour and a half,
mhm.
with a teacher. And I heard it's funny how you remember your teachers as you grow up as well. Their names, you never forget it. I
Exactly.
was just talking to some of my students about that the other day. Her name was Dr. Virginia Goss,
Mm,
and she taught me about styles of music and how to move away from the particular system I was using called the pointer system to learn how to play organ,
mm,
and then develop my own style. I wasn't able to do that at that point, but then I needed to get another organ because I was renting the one that I had at home. Went to a music store downtown, met the salesman. Salesman took a liking to me and said, "You know what? I'll teach him, and I want him to have this particular organ." The organ turned out to be one of the first organs ever built by the Hammond Organ Company.
Is that right?
In 1939.
Wow.
It was demonstrated at the 1939 World's Fair, and it was called an A1. It was the predecessor to the B3 model, which we all hear so much about and see on TV and so forth. But I brought that big monster home and sat it in the front living room and played as much as I could, and was getting lessons from the same salesman for about maybe 2 years, playing in the showroom there at the store for the holidays and so forth, just to attract people as they walk by.
Yeah.
So I took a liking to that because it was fun to see people watching me having fun.
Like you were watching the guy at school.
Exactly.
Right.
So then I shifted to another teacher, Dr. E. Woodley Kalehoff, who was recommended by the salesperson to get training from. And I studied under him for about 6 years. And until one day he just looked at me, he said, "You know what? I've taught you everything I can teach you. I can't teach you anymore. You're going to have to figure out the rest on your own." What? No, Mr. Kalehoff, no, please, don't do that to me. He's like, "No, well, this is it."
Wow.
So it was like hanging you out on a limb, okay, you better figure out how to jump.
Now, were you listening to those guys, or were you listening to the Jimmy Smiths, the Charles?
Yeah, I was fortunate because my dad was a jazz buff. But you wouldn't really know it unless you were around the house on Sundays.
I see.
Every Sunday he would go over to the console that we had. He used to work for RCA, so we had pretty much all the good stuff as it came out. Yeah. And we had a nice stereo with a record player and big speakers on it. It looked like a big piece of furniture. Yeah. And he would just play, oh gosh, Shirley Scott albums, Jimmy Smith albums, Earl Garner, Earl Grant, and all these really, famous keyboardists, pianists, and organists. Herbie Mann was also in the part of the collection he had. So I'm listening to jazz every Sunday.
Sure.
And then I started figuring out, well, I should try to see if I can cop that. So I'd go over on the organ while he's playing his records and see if I can catch this little lick that Shirley did. And let me check the drawbar registration, see if I can match that sound that's on there, and a lot of experimentation I was doing, and it worked. Because later on, as I grew into playing organ and traveling, I learned to use those same drawbar registrations that Jimmy Smith and everybody was using to mix into the bands that I was touring with.
And so when you were touring with the big A1?
Yes.
Wow.
There's a lot of stories that goes on with that, because I was in a group called the Futures. We had a 6-member band with 5 lead singers, which their style was more or less like the Temptations. I mean, they had the 5-tier microphone at first, and then they went to single mic stands. Choreography all over it, the whole entire show. I mean, even in between songs, that there were certain movements that had to happen, and what they would do, and we'd be watching, and we would kind of blend in with what they were doing, so we had a complete show.
Yeah. At
the end of the show, they all would look at me and say, you need to figure out what to do with this organ. We got to help you take it home now. So they would get mad at me. It was like, okay, well, all right, we know we got to do this. So we got to load it up in the van. So we got to carry it off the stage now, set it down. And we always had this expression: it ain't nothing but a baby. It ain't nothing but a baby. All right, y'all ready? Yeah, it ain't nothing but a baby. Okay, we got it. Lift it up and struggling, take it to we had these Econoline vans where we would put it in the back, and take it home. But we did it for a few years.
That's amazing.
One time we were doing a show after hours, after show we did at a club, and we were told that we were going to do a speakeasy. I was like, oh, well, okay, good. More money. So we went to this house, and this was all in Philly too, and had to carry this organ up a flight of steep steps. It was, I would think, probably 25, 30 steps. Narrow steps.
No baby, no more.
the organ slid while we were trying to go up the steps. One of the guys up front, his feet slipped off the steps. I thought I was going to have a heart attack that night. I just knew that organ was coming down on top of us all and just, explode, just going to pieces.
Yeah.
But we caught it, managed to reset ourselves, get back up steps. Then we had to go lift it up over top of the banister that was on the first floor. Of course, we thought about just tying a rope to it and just hanging out the window from get it down. So eventually, I was really glad that Hammond Organ Company came out with a portable organ.
Mm-hmm.
It was called the PORTA B.
The PORTA B. Now, did that precede the B3 as well?
No, B3 was already manufactured.
I see.
But it was an alternative for musicians that travel.
Yes.
And even though it was portable, it was still a little awkward to carry because you had two pieces. Basically, you lift the top up, and then the bottom part where the pedals were where the amp was. Then you had to fold the legs down, and you could carry it. But it was rough.
I can imagine. Now, what I wanted to ask you about organ playing, obviously, before getting into jazz, my first exposure to obviously listening to organ began in church, obviously.
Sure.
And, just the personality of the things the organist would do juxtaposed against the piano. Mm-hmm. Just holding down the chords, making sure the choir was on point, and the organist usually having that grit underneath everything that was going on. But do you have to be naturally ambidextrous to play, the organ, or is that something that comes with the training with because you're constantly moving, you're doing the bass with the foot, how is that?
I would think that you have to eventually learn it, that you have to learn the pedals, mm-hmm. which requires usually one foot, but then you start incorporating the second foot. When you incorporate the second foot, you need to be able to move from the volume pedal to the right foot to get other pedal notes that you need.
Absolutely.
And you're still managing both hands. So I'm just going to speak for myself. Again, fortunate and blessings from God that my dad was left-handed, my mom was right-handed. I ended up with both. So even to this day, I play sports with my left hand, dribbling, throwing baseballs, but I eat and write with my right hand.
Wow.
So maybe that helped. I don't know. But, as I talk to other organists and teachers that I've worked with, they don't have that type of balance between left and right hand. So it has to be that I would think, again, just my opinion, that they probably learned it on being able to be coordinated between legs and hands.
Mm-hmm. Well, Joey DeFrancisco, and I'm trying to think of the song. This is some years back, but honestly, he had a trio out, and it was just drummer and guitarist, and he was killing the bass. The bass.
I think he still does that.
Oh my God! What you're thinking? Wait a minute! It's not Jaco Pastorius up there at all, and he's just rolling with it. So I'm just imagining all of the training and all of the discipline that it takes to keep that on point, and still you want to hit the drawbars for the different timbres that you want to create, the EQ, and it's just amazing. You guys are like a mad scientist up there.
Yeah.
I do want to ask though, with respect to your being such an accomplished singer as well, do you prefer one over the other, or it's just all in the stew that is Vel Lewis?
Exactly. It's all in the stew. It just depends on what's needed and what I'm doing. I tend to fall back on vocal and prefer instrumental.
I see.
Only because I guess, during writing, I try to do a little of both, but I do it as it comes.
I understand.
So, for example, I may write a song, like I was just saying with Larry Braggs. I had intended it to be for a female voice, but in a different key. Then later on, I said, well, what if I was to try to sing it myself? I'll change the key into something that I'm comfortable with.
Yes.
And I practiced around with it a few times over months. And I said, well, I could probably deliver but I got a feeling I can probably find somebody that'll do it better than I am, because I know nobody's perfect,
Yes,
you know. So I'll just put it out there and see how it goes.
mm-hmm.
So I tried a couple female voices. They didn't seem too comfortable with the range, because the vocal part throughout the song does go from a lower register to a higher register, and not every female vocalist wants to do that. They like to be, you know, just in their mid range. And I understand that. So I said, well, let me just try somebody else. So I found, again, a voice that was similar to mine, but had the range and the control
Mm-hmm.
on a better level than I do. And
Yes.
I said, well, hey, Larry, go for it and see what you can do with it. And of course, he delivered. So
That's all right. You know, that's being a great producer too.
yeah, exactly.
Knowing what your personal, especially if the producer is the musician, knowing what your strengths and your challenges are, and not letting your own ego get in the way because my name is on the album, you know.
Exactly.
That's par for the course. Now, you had mentioned the futures and, you know, those formative years of picking up that big baby that you had to do. When was your first recording? Did that happen with another band, or did it happen after you left the road with Dionne? Or
that was actually with the Futures. We had the band, again, we all worked as a unit.
Mm-hmm.
So when it came to that point where we saw that it was time for us to break away and do our own thing as a band group, again, because we were working with a group that did choreography, we had our own choreography too. Mm-hmm. And we would open up the show for the singers. So we decided we needed to take that and, you know, just exploit it. And
that's like Parliament Funkadelic.
Exactly.
You know, same concept.
Right. So we said, well, you know, we need some songs. And I had already started writing some of my own songs. Mm-hmm. So I got together with the drummer and the guitarist, and this was in 1974. And we came out with a song that I co-wrote with the drummer. The guitarist did the vocal track with me, so we split it up in parts.
Yeah. And
I sang the opening lead, and he took the second verse, and then the same thing for, you know, the repeat part later on. Mm-hmm. And I did that while I was actually doing gospel sessions with various gospel groups, Gospel Airs, the Dixie Hummingbirds, Sensational Nightingales, and those are my early days. And I was still in high school.
Yeah.
So all of the band members, pretty much all of them, I would say the drummer, the bassist, guitarist, and percussionist, we all went to the same high school together. Mm-hmm. So it was more of a camaraderie for us to get together and, you know, actually put this song together.
Yeah.
When we got in the studio and recorded it, which happened to be a studio that I was already working with the gospel sessions, the engineer heard it and he said, you know, I had a feeling that you guys were going to come in here and just smoke it. And then this song is smoking. So it was called Tell Me Why. Mm-hmm. And he said he wanted to let someone hear it after he did the mix on it. I said, all right, fine. So he called up a friend of his in California. And this guy turned out to be Bobby Womack's road manager. Mm-hmm. He liked what he heard. He said, okay, I got some friends I'm going to make some phone calls to. So he ended up calling Warner Brothers. And at the time, the Reprise record label was signing acts. Reprise was owned by Frank Sinatra.
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
Yep. So we ended up getting a deal on that label.
Wow.
And that song was aired on American Bandstand with Dick Clark and was shown as the pick of the week. Wow. And it happened, I didn't know it. I just happened to be looking at TV, looking at American Bandstand on that day. As you can imagine, you know, just sitting there as a young kid and all of a sudden seeing this name come up on the board that they used to put the names of the songs. The pick of the week is, and, you know, these two dancers would come up and put these letters on, and I said, tell me why. And then I started hearing the song play. Mom, I'm screaming in the house. She's like, what? You need to see this. Look.
Wow.
So that was a highlight. And the song ended up being a major hit in the UK, dance hit in the Northern Soul movement. Heard back in the mid to late 70s. And even to this day, it's been remastered by Warner Brothers UK, I think 2 or 3 times on different compilation albums.
That's a wonderful story, man.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I asked you earlier what music had taught you. And, in your answer and in your response, you said that you were part of the corporate world as well. So since you've walked both sides of the fence, what has the music business taught you? Or maybe did you learn something in the corporate world that you brought to the music business of Vel Lewis and says, okay, I can learn from this? Or are they so separate that, not in respect to the corporate structure, but the principles, the values, the attitude that it takes to be that entree musician, apply the business principles? Are there some lessons that you've learned from the music business?
Vice versa, just as you put it, from the corporate world. I actually started working for the school district of Philadelphia right after I finished touring with the Delphonics. At that point in my life, I think I was just more or less having fun and looking at life as being fun, playing music, enjoyed music, liked to listen to it. I was always listening to different music artists and so forth, and I kind of knew who the hits would be just from hearing it. But I didn't have a business sense at that point. So once I started working in schools, working with students as a reading aid, which was my first job at the school district. Still, it took a while for any kind of business sense to actually come into my mind. And I'm sorry about this dinging. This is
good.
Yeah, this is coming from notifications. I didn't get a chance to throw some headphones on.
Oh, good.
Okay. But after working for the school district for 5 years and I moved out to California, I had to get a job right away. So once that happened, then I started learning more about how business principles, running a business, handling day-to-day activities, how important those things are and how I can utilize what I'm learning while I'm working for a company with the music business once things started really rolling.
Certainly.
So at the time, as I mentioned, I was a songwriter for LA Post Music, writing songs for TV while I was working, but I was also performing every now and then. So the performance turned out, again, to be more just fun and getting together with the band and playing.
Yeah.
But then after the show was over, my mind went back into, okay, so what am I going to do with this now? I got to put some songs together. I got to make sure if I'm going to do a song on my own, they have to be copywritten, because I've already lost a couple songs not knowing that.
Correct.
Once the copyright is done, I need to get a publishing company together too, because I need to be able to control money that's going to be generated from this.
Certainly.
So these things, again, in business, seeing how vice presidents and managers and directors in corporate world manage a business operation.
That's right.
And then as I moved up into the business and actually had that kind of responsibility on my own shoulders, and I knew, okay, I know what has to be done now. This is going to require me to be getting up in the morning early, just like I've been doing. And then once I'm up, I got a schedule, and I just keep a calendar of whatever I got to do. I got certain tasks that have to be fulfilled. And to this day, I work the same way.
Yeah.
So I'm just really glad that I was able to learn from my experiences in the corporate world, and be able to utilize them with music so that it's become more of a successful business for me now.
Absolutely.
I talk to a lot of musicians about this as well, that you really need to take some time to understand the business side of things.
That's absolutely right. And that's why, the EntreMusician exists. It was the same thing. I was a drummer in a band, and it seems like, after the performances, things kind of naturally fell to me. I've never worked in corporate America. We're teenagers trying to do this, but somebody needs to call to book the next gig. Somebody needs to think about these original songs that we're playing in quote unquote sock hops and whatnot.
Yeah.
What's how seriously are we taking this? My first business book I read was Kenny Rogers and Lynn Eppin, called Making It with Music. And, just trying to, and this is the first time I've heard about copywriting and publishing and all of these things. And I guess the EntreMusician has been in my spirit for a long time, but it wasn't until about 20 years later, Dave Ramsey wrote a book called The EntreLeader. And many of the principles and, budgeting and how I thought, man, this all applies to musicians and artists that I know. And we began talking about the possibility of putting this together. And now it's a growing community. And I'm glad that you are part of it, man, because you've had the EntreMusician in you
Right.
for the longest time. And I want to talk about something else that you're doing, because, well, let me just say this, because you said getting up in the morning. So there's two of you, because there is that creative genius in you that realizes that the music has to be made, has to be created, the product. But then there's that other you that gets up in the morning and says, okay, what needs to be done as far as my business is concerned?
Right.
But we've been embarking on a series called Raising Your Voice for the EntreMusician, because your music is not just about entertainment. And you've put together this wonderful foundation called F2F. And I want to talk about that a little bit, what it means in the underlying way that Vel Lewis is using his voice as an EntreMusician.
Well, as I mentioned, I've been working with young people, I think since 73, when I started working for the school district of Philadelphia, till 78. And I started off in Title I schools and reading aid, as a reading aid, working with students of second, third, and fourth grade. Then the next year, and I would get assignments from the administration office. Well, okay, you'll be here this year. Next year, we need you at this school. So I was shifted around through various schools and different grades, and ended up in alternative school where I had 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. For that particular year, teaching reading, math, and English skills. And having outside experiences while I'm working in these particular schools. I'm in different sections of the city.
Yeah.
That one particular school, that just so happens, since this is Black History Month, that we talk about things that happened, in the Black communities, that there was an organization back then called MOVE, MOVE, and they were more of a Back to Africa type group. And there's a big story behind that, which I won't go into right now, but if you look it up, you'll see that there's videos and everything about these folks. And I used to see them while I would go to school. And then also had to make sure that I could keep control on the kids, not getting, interfacing with these folks out there in the community, and keep them focused on their schoolwork and also on their upward progress to move on to high school. Then had a short experience with high school students, but all of this let me see how kids in the community can lose opportunities if they're not focused on what it is that they really want to do in life. And a lot of those interferences come from the community, from the home. And I noticed how if I interject with students and give them opportunities to have something to look forward to, that it creates a bond with them, which can be a lifetime thing. And it's also very rewarding to me as well to be able to help them. So a couple of years ago, once I moved here to Houston, I decided, I need to figure out a way to give back what I experienced, because someone helped me when I was in high school. It turned out to be Stevie Wonder's business manager that just came to my school classroom and took me out to play a music show with Jerry Brown, who was the drummer with Chick Corea and Stanley Clarke on the School Days album. And since then, he's been playing with Diana Ross and Lionel Richie and Stevie Wonder. I mean, just doing it.
And that's Jerry with a G.
Right, exactly. And John Lee was the bassist, who now is running the Dizzy Gillespie jazz ensemble that tours. Having that kind of opportunity where someone just finds out about you and then puts you into a situation where the career blossomed into what I have now. I said, I can do that with students too, and help them in a way where I can give them some direction, some focus on where they could have a career if they want to be in music. And then I saw the benefits of music as well and how it can help. Yeah. From an academic standpoint, it helps with concentration, with focus, because there is math involved with music. Right. And also it falls in line with some of the STEM programs that are out there with high schools and colleges now, which is very rewarding as well. So F2F, that acronym actually stands for Faith to Form. And that was a dream that I got maybe at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I knew it was God talking to me, because I know my own voice, and that wasn't my voice that I was hearing. Yeah, and it startled me, which is why I woke up and sat on the side of the bed. And I said, what is this name, Faith to Form? What are you telling me, Lord? And I needed a name for the organization. There's another friend of mine who's, I think she might still be the secretary for the Texas Black Music Educators Association. She was the one that put the seed out there and said, you might want to think about doing a nonprofit organization to help kids if you want to do that. And she said, I'll help you. I said, okay, great. So we had pretty much done all the templates to get everything in place to file our paperwork, and this name came up. So as I asked the Lord, so what does this mean? I started getting sentences. Faith to form young leaders of tomorrow. Faith to form a upward mobility for students who don't have access, who need help. Faith to form musicians that can take the place of other musicians that are leaving us, like Luther Vandross and George Duke and so many others that have passed away. Certainly. So I said, you know what, that works. I like that. Thank you. So I just put the name out there, filed it, and I said, we'll use the acronym, F, and then the number 2, and then the letter F, and you see it here on my T-shirt, of course. We now have a logo gear store online to help raise money for the foundation. We are 501c3 and set to be able to be a public charitable organization. But I want to focus on the performing arts and music primarily to help students, young musicians, music students, have some way of making a career for themselves, because no one else is actually stepping down that I've seen. There's a few, I take that back. There's a few musicians, friends of mine actually, who are doing something similar. But to be able to, again, go into an environment, whether it be in the community or into a school, and say, hey, you're playing trumpet or trombone, is this something you want to do for the rest of your life? If you do, maybe I can help you. I can, give you some advice, some direction, maybe, provide some opportunities that would help you. And it's been really nice to see things starting to grow and develop as they have now. So we have
That's wonderful.
different programs, instrument fund program where we help students that whose families can't afford to buy an instrument. We help them get instruments.
Mm-hmm.
We partnered with an instrument manufacturing company. They've been very helpful in working with us. We now have a couple banks that are supporting us as well. Local TV station here is supporting us.
Mm-hmm.
And the school district, Fort Bend Independent School District, has been very helpful. We're about to launch our music workshop program and clinics in middle schools and high schools. That should take place in the next couple of weeks. And we've been doing a jazz improvisation summer camp. We ran one this past July. We've got another one scheduled to do in conjunction with Houston Community College this coming year. University of Charleston, West Virginia has been participating as well. The director of bands is a good friend of mine. Mm-hmm. He's been doing the Zoom workshops with us over the last November and December. We did 2. And we're making plans to be able to help students that may want to go on to a university, mm-hmm. that they'll have the opportunity as being an F2F Music Foundation student to be able to do an audition for that university. Yeah. And if they pass the audition, they get entrance into the university and the possibility of getting a scholarship. And I think scholarships are starting at $10,000. So it's a really good thing to see now that I'm able to help. And that's pretty much what I wanted to do. So yeah, excited about this.
That's absolutely beautiful. And not just with Charleston, you see the future having different chapters opening up across the United States and abroad?
Yeah, we're actually ready to expand now. I've been working with one of my board members, Paula Atherton. She's a national recording artist, a saxophonist. Yeah. To expand through East Coast now. So we've got a presence because of her living in New York City.
Excellent.
In that area, into New Jersey. Other artists in that area that she knows are starting to participate as well.
That's excellent.
So just having exposure, the kids are also coming from those areas. I'm about to reach out to California as well because my brother's a drummer. So he's going to be on one of my podcast shows in the next few weeks.
Very cool.
So it's a lot going on.
That's why I said at the beginning of this conversation that you've done everything, you're doing everything. So we're trying to touch a little bit on all that, but no, that's wonderful because one of the very unfortunate things that are happening in public schools specifically is the lack of music education programs because the music is changing so much for electronic music, DAWs, even drum machines and whatnot, is not the same as when I was going to school, when you were going to school, and there was an actual trumpet. This is a trumpet. This is a saxophone, there was a jazz musician who was coming around this area. I'm in the Youngstown area, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, an hour, in between, stuck kind of in the middle of both of those major cities. But in this area, Akron, Warren, Youngstown, we've seen the depletion of really great music programs, other than, on the sports side, for the marching bands, but really critical listening sessions. And again, it seems in my formative years, and I know I'm showing my age or telling my age, but we did have that commitment to making sure that young musician was able to nurture their passion while increasing the technical aspect of their instrument. So it is absolutely important, and hoping that comes back soon. So perhaps F2F may one day have a presence in northeastern Ohio area as well.
Well, let's definitely talk about it because we're available to expand. Like I say, I'm building a coalition right now with other nonprofit organizations that are focused on music. Mm-hmm. Also, we have some guests that are going to appear as on the podcast show that F2F has now in the next couple of weeks because of a book that has been published on New Year's Eve that contains a story about how F2F helped a young 10-year-old music student, obtain his own trombone because he didn't have one. His grandmother actually reached out to me to see if there was a way to get a scholarship for her grandson or someone to be able to help. And
Excellent.
we managed to, work together with the instrument manufacturing company I was talking about, F.E. Olds in New Jersey, to help us out to get a trombone for him.
The next Fred Wesley. Wayne.
Yes, exactly.
Wayne Henderson.
Exactly,
coming
right.
up. That's great.
Yeah, so we're doing more of that, and looking forward to seeing these students, achieve better goals now that they've been given an instrument that will help them increase their musical taste and exposure to music, but also to help them, like as I mentioned, and from an academic standpoint, so that the grade level goes up because of the concentration that's involved with music that helps concentration with academic skills and so forth. So some of these students, I've just got a message last night that one that I helped also get a trombone. He said, "Hey, I'm about to audition for these particular colleges and universities." I said, "Wow!" And he said, "I'm using this trombone that you gave me." All right, you go, man. Let me know if you need some help. So.
Oh yeah, that's absolutely excellent. Well, you said also that that's F2F is the nonprofit, but you also have a for-profit corporation that deals with music as well. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, it's called Color Sound LLC. It's a limited liability company, and it's been more or less my cataloging company, where all of my music that I've written over the years is more or less housed and protected through the publishing company that's called Lewis Color Sound. And right now I've got 2 students that are honing their skills more or less. They're both vocalists, females. One in particular, she just turned 18 a few days ago, has already recorded her first single with a producer who's a Grammy Award winning producer. She's working out of Mexico right now. And I see nothing but success for this girl, because when I listened to her single and noticed how her producer had put it together with the full orchestra behind her and some of the special effects that he used within the song, it just so happened I'm a voting member with the Grammy organization too, with NARAS, and I was listening and doing voting at the time that she sent me the link. And she said, "Mr. Lewis, I'd like for you to listen to my new single. We just finished the final mix on it." I said, "Oh, wow, okay." So I'm listening to quality music that I have to vote on, and then listening to her single, and I said, the quality is the same almost. I'm like, gosh, I said, this single is going to take off, girl. I'm telling you. She said, "Really? You think so?" "Yes, indeed." So before we go any further, I said, "I can introduce you to some people. I'll send it out. But did you take care of your copyright yet?" Her dad's an attorney, so he's already put a lot of paperwork and everything together. I said, "That's great. But when you turn 18," since I knew it was coming in a couple of weeks, you go to the copyright.gov website and put your copyright in there. Make sure that your producer's aware, because they need to file for the sound recording part of it, but just get your writer's credit in place, because then you need to get your publishing rights in place.
Right.
Since you've written the song, you can register with a company like ASCAP or BMI to make sure that you're receiving your royalties as the song gets played wherever. So I want to have it on Spotify, and I'm going to have it on. That's what I'm talking about. You need to make sure that if you do that, that you are getting your money. There's also another company that's going to handle your streaming. So
certainly,
I'll direct you into all these areas where you need to go. But yeah, you're ready. So yeah, the other girl actually just put out her song too. Her name is Autumn Green. She's got an album that's out there on iTunes right now. So I'm coaching her and with her mom.
Yeah.
She kind of took a hiatus for a little bit because she's also working a job. So I had to give her some time to get her personal life together.
Right.
But she's there, ready to go. So yeah, like I said, can find these artists. Well, especially Autumn, she's already out there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other artist I was just talking about, her name is Jamili, and she'll be out there on the market soon. So
that's excellent. We heard it here first.
Yeah, exactly.
Musician story, what happened behind the scenes, and by God's grace, how you're helping her to move forward. That's absolutely excellent, man. I knew this was going to be a wonderful conversation. We first met maybe 3-4 years ago on another radio show, and just haven't kept in touch like on the regular, but always seem that when we do run into each other online or what have you, be able to pick it up where we left off. And so I'm really grateful, man, for who you are, for your spirit, for your generosity, for your personality, man, but also for your artistry. Really love me some Vel Lewis. Always digging the many performance clips that you have on YouTube and abroad, the montage that you have on your website. And people can get in touch with you at vellewis.com.
That's right.
But I'm also going to make sure that they know how to reach out to F2F as well. Now, I'm sure that there was a question that you thought, I know Jerry's going to ask me this question. I haven't asked it. Can you answer that unasked question right now about yourself or your career, your life?
The unasked question. I've been thinking about writing a book. My wife has talked to me about it a few times. I've been thinking, and maybe I might not have the time to sit down and write a book, but I'll keep that in the back of my mind and start just writing some stuff here and there, just so, when it comes to that point that I've got it written out.
Yeah.
But from a life...
Do you have a title? Do you have a title for the unpublished book yet?
No.
So, and I know you do this all the time with music ideas. You can just, record your memories, your excerpts, and then have someone else transcribe it.
That's what I know. There was a publicist that I've worked with before. She mentioned the same thing. She said, you just get you a voice recorder and you can just record your story.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I will. But when I find the time, my time is so limited, I can barely sleep these days.
I understand.
But it'll pan out, because like you say, once I get things rolling with the Music Foundation, which we're almost at that point now where I can start bringing on volunteers and employees and so forth. Once we get the funding in place, and I'm always reaching out for donations. You can always go to our website. It's f2fmusicfoundation.org. And there's a little donate button there. You can do it one-time donation. You can do monthly, you can do annually, and we're working to just get it to a point where I can just say, okay, now it's running. I've done what I have to do. Now I can just sit back and me and my wife can enjoy our life. So.
You can never do that.
I know, it's a dream.
I don't know where that came from, but
you
can do that.
That's that unasked question.
That's right. That's
what
right.
You want to do?
How is Vel going to retire? It'll never happen. So.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I'm so grateful for the time that you've given me today. Ladies
My
and gentlemen,
pleasure.
This is one of the ultimate EntreMusicians. This is Vel Lewis. When we get that book, we can read all about the story. Obviously, we didn't go from A to Z today. He will come back on this platform sometime soon and share some more of his great story and the great work that he is doing. But he is an EntreMusician.
And by the way, the name of that book is 88 More Ways Music Can Change Your Life.
88 more ways that music can change your life.
Yeah, there has been a previous edition of the book. It was called 88 Ways Music Can Change It, but now we're adding more. So my story with the Music Foundation, with F2F, and others have participated now. And it's available on Amazon. So, it's already out there.
Excellent.
So it's on paperback and e-edition.
Well, I will make sure that that's linked both to the video channel as well as the podcast. So
Perfect. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we will definitely on our end make sure we spread the word, and you guys do the same out there too. But that's Vel Lewis. He's an EntreMusician. My name is Jerry B. I am the EntreMusician, but you know what? So are you. We will definitely see you next time. God bless.
Amen.